Graham, it's Dennis from the Australian Rock Show. Nice to chat with you today. How are you?
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm doing all right.
Wonderful. Now, you're hitting Australia soon with Alcatrazz, blasting out a set comprised of some of your career highlights, most notably Rainbow's Down to Earth album, performed in its entirety. It will be wonderful to have you back in Australia again.
Oh, it'd be nice to be back because it's been a few years now, and I've never done a whole album before on stage live. This album, Down to Earth album, we only did a few songs from it when I was in Rainbow, and mixed in with some Ronnie Dio songs. But this time we're doing every damn track, and it's going to be a bit of a challenge because I've got to remember everything. And but it'll be okay. I think it's going to be great. I think you'll like what you hear because we're rehearsing right now as we speak. The guys are at the house, and we all rehearse at the house. And so we are looking forward to being there. You know, it's going to be great, I think.
Well, I know for a time in the late 1980s you called Australia home. I, in fact, saw you perform with the Party Boys at an outdoor gig in Sydney, which must have been very early 1988. How did that gig come about? Was it via a connection with Alan Lancaster?
Yeah, it was, in fact, yes. The Party Boys, I went to see them play, I think, and Alan took me aside, because I've known him from, we were managed by the same people, Status Quo and me, in London. And he said, do you want to come for a drink or something? I can't remember, or get something to eat. And he said, what do you think about the band? I said, well, you're doing top 40 stuff. I said, it's good. It's all right, yeah. He says, would you like to sing with us? Because we had lots of different singers. And he mentioned a whole bunch of people that I knew. And I said, well, okay. I wasn't doing anything at the time, so I thought, well, okay, I'll do this. And I played a few gigs with those guys, and it was great for a while. But it was Alan that got me in the band, yeah.
Australia in the 1970s is a country which really embraced your music. Both the self-titled album and No Bad Habits the following year had massive commercial success. I guess in a time when chart success meant something, that time period in your career is just amazing. It's all over now. Baby Blue went to number 3 here, which resulted in a top 10 album, and it's a similar story for the Warm Ride single, which climbed all the way to number 2 on the Australian charts, with No Bad Habits reaching number 6. You did a promo tour in November of 77, and there was talk of a concert tour in 1978, which I believe never eventuated. I'm surprised with all that chart success, a tour was never booked.
Yeah, I don't know why that happened. I have no idea. I mean, you're telling me something that I don't even know about, because at that time I didn't have a band anyway. I was just, recording, and that was about it. I never went on the road with any of the albums. I didn't do any promotion or anything. So I didn't have a band, and I was just Graham Bonnet on his own, So that's probably why it didn't happen. I'm not sure. I mean, you're telling me something I didn't really know was probably going to happen. That's news to me.
I have met people over here over the years who are convinced It's All Over Now, Baby Blue is in fact a Graham Bonnet tune. That to me is a great indication that an artist has made a song very much their own.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you to those people. Yeah, because it's Bob Dylan's song, of course. But I edited it a bit. There was one verse I didn't think it didn't sound right the way I did the song. And the idea I had for that song itself, when I went to my producer, I said, I'd like this to be like the Rod Stewart song, Maggie May. Yeah, Maggie May, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, Maggie May. Wake up, Maggie, da, 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 da. Because the melody is very similar. The chords are pretty much the same too. And I wanted to have that sound that he had on Maggie May. I can't think of the title of it, I'm sorry. But that's how we put the arrangement together, and my producer said, what a great idea. And so it was a hit single, which is, again, I was surprised by. But it didn't happen in England, but it did happen in Australia for me. At that time, I was living in England. And I remember a DJ over there, a guy called Tony Blackburn. He played the single, It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. And he had a sarcastic comment at the end. He said, it's all over now by Graham Bonnet. And it certainly is. He put me down, basically, on...
Well, not really. It still gets played regularly on AM radio and radio here. But Graham, those recordings from 77, 78 were released via Ringo Starr's short-lived label, Ringo Records. But that was not your first connection to Ringo, as I believe that when you were 14 years old, you unsuccessfully auditioned for a band playing at an English holiday camp, which featured one Richard Starkey behind the kit. Is that correct?
Almost. I didn't get to. What happened was my neighbor knew Ringo, my next door neighbor. And he came to me one day. He said, "There's this man who's playing at Butlins Holiday Camp. He's got a beard. He looks a bit like a beatnik, as we used to say back then. And his name's Richard Starkey, but he calls himself Ringo Starr. And he's a drummer, and they're looking for a new singer. It was called Rory Storm. Rory Storm was the singer, and so." He went along to Ringo and said, "I've got this kid who lives next door to me who's a really good singer, and he would like to come and audition for the band." And he said, "Okay, how old is he?" And he said, "Well, he's 13. "Oh, way too young." Because at that time, you couldn't play in a place that sold liquor unless you were, I think it was 15 or 16 in England. At that time, you could play on stage, but you weren't allowed to drink, obviously, and you couldn't go anywhere near the bar when you were 15 or 16 years old. But I was only 13, and so that's what happened. I never auditioned for them, but of course, years later, I met Ringo when we had the little party for me when the first album on Ringo Records was released. So I sort of said, "You know something?" I told him a story. Anyway, it was kind of cool. But it never happened. I could have been in the Beatles. You never know.
You could have gone to Hamburg with Rory Storm and the Hurricanes. Who knows?
Yeah.
Now, Graham, we kicked off this episode with the Rainbow tune "Lost in Hollywood," a song which you still include in your live set. It's one of my favourite Rainbow tracks, penned by Richie, Roger Glover and Cozy Powell. Do you recall your reaction when you first heard that song? And is there any power or adrenaline rush you feel when you sing that one live?
Oh, always. It's one of my favourite songs off the album, to be honest with you. And Cozy came up with the beginning part of the drum, obviously the drum thing at the beginning. And Roger gave me an idea for the melody for the song. You just hummed something to me one day, and he just said, "Take that where you may." And so I made up the melody to that. I was never credited for anything on that album. In fact, I didn't realize I was writing songs at the time. But anyway, it was Richie and Roger that came up with the main lick, and then Cozy added his fantastic drumming to it. And I was given a rough idea of how the melody should go, and then I changed it around as I sang the lyrics that Roger Glover wrote. That's how we did every track. I would have we'd record one song probably about 4 different ways, different melodies and whatever, and the different words. And then we chose the one that was going the right way. And we came up with the right idea for Lost in Hollywood after about 2 takes, I think,
Okay, before we move away from Rainbow, I would just like to mention Russ Ballard. We know he has penned some amazing tunes, but 2015's The Mirror Lies and My Kingdom Come are epic songs that more people need to hear, just wonderful tunes.
Well, The Mirror Lies is mine. I made that one up. He did the My Kingdom Come. That's Russ. I usually call him up or text him or whatever to see if he's got anything for the new album. And he's done songs for me ever since the Rainbow days, on albums I've made. But The Mirror Lies is my song completely. Russ Ballard is was it My Kingdom Come? That's all him. He's a great writer. And I've always respected his writing, and I love his songs. And so I've asked him if he'll do anything for this band, but I think we've gotten a bit too heavy for him now. I'm not sure.
Listen, here's a random one, Graham. Helen Shapiro toured Australia in October of '62 with support from British ventriloquist Arthur Worsley and his dummy Charlie Brown. Now, prior to the Beatles tour of Australia in '64, that was one of the biggest international tours here. What was it about Helen Shapiro that has so much influence on you?
Well, because she had a very sort of a tenor voice almost. And those records she made back then, people didn't know if it was a guy or a girl. And I used to sing in my bedroom, and my mum and dad said to me one day, "You sound like Helen Shapiro on these things," So I had this sort of, because I was young, I had a sort of a higher voice-ish. But she sang in what I would call a masculine key, not quite tenor, but almost. And so I started buying her music, sheet music, and I would sing, just because, whatever her song was. Don't think that I dream childish dreams. What was it called? Don't Treat Me Like a Child. I remember singing that and other songs that she recorded because the sound of her voice was very similar to mine. And that had that sort of what I call a brown sound. So not black, but brown. And just that, I always thought she's a great singer, and she still is. She's more into jazz though now. You know, she's very much like the Amy Whitehouse kind of a thing. But she's the original Amy Whitehouse, and she's a lot older.
Okay.
Amy Whitehouse didn't quite make it.
Look, at 71, I think you're 71 years of age, I guess you'd be entitled to put the feet up after a long musical career. Yet if your recent touring schedule and your upcoming tour dates are any indication, you know, the rock and roll fire is still burning very bright in your belly, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit, yeah. I mean, if I ever stopped doing this, I don't know what I would do. I can't imagine not singing. Ever. As hard work as it is, sometimes I moan about it, like, oh God, really got to do all that? Oh, geez. You know, how long's the show? I mean, the show we do with Michael Schenker is 3 hours long, but ours is like 1:45, the show we're doing. But it's something that I could never give up on. So it's something that is in my blood, and the day that I give up is the day I drop down dead, I think. I don't want that to happen anytime soon, but, you know, I think I will keep on going until I say to myself, you know, your voice is crap now. But so far, I've kept my singing voice pretty much the way it was when I was 30 years old, you know.
Many listeners may not be aware of your work with Italian guitar player Dario Molo, who is known in some circles as the Italian version of Ritchie Blackmore. The album you recorded together in 2017 as Izu, called, I think it's called Feed the Beast, has some amazing tunes such as Motorbike and C'est La Vie. You have worked with some high-profile players in your time. How does Dario stack up? Oh,
he's one of my favourite guitar players. He's written a couple of songs for the new Alcatrazz album. I finished those two songs melodically and lyrically. I finished those months ago. We're ready to record the new album now with Alcatrazz. But he comes up with some great arrangements. I've always liked his play. He's a great guitar player. Really is. I love him to death, you know. So thank you, Dario. You know, not a lot of people know who he is, I know, but he's one of the people that is always there. And he's always there for me, I know that. And I would, even though a lot of people don't know who he is, when you find a great musician, I always want to work with them, no matter who they are. Even Dario.
Well,
no, he's a great player. I mean, really.
Further to that, and I just mentioned, you know, you've worked with some of the world's most talented guitar players, Blackmore, Malmsteen, Steve Vai, Michael Schenker, Chris Impellitteri, Bob Kulick and Blackthorn, all different in their own way. I guess, did any of them make your jaw drop or leave you speechless when you very first heard them play live?
Yeah, well, Yngwie was the first one because he was like a kid. He was a mere child. He was about 19 when he joined Alcatrazz. I was just amazed how well he could play Ritchie Blackmore's stuff for a start. And he was like a young Ritchie Blackmore. He wore the same clothes, you know, the shiny black shirt and the shiny black pants, I should say, and the Cuban heel boots, the whole thing. He looked like him when he walked into rehearsal, and I'll never forget it. And we said, well, he looks like Ritchie. Let's see if he plays like him. And he just blew us all away. And then, but I've probably said a million times to other people, my favorite guitar player was Steve Vai. I love the way he played so differently to other guitar players. He didn't, you know, show off too much. He was always a guy who was actually a band member and played within the song instead of playing over the song or overplaying in the song. He was always someone that took the song seriously and added, you know, a bit of quality to the song when it needed it, you know. And of course, Michael, who else do you say? Oh, Bob Kulick. I mean, they're all great players, but they are so different. Bob's another one that can play anything just about. I played with him recently in Vegas. We did a show, and it was kind of cool to see Bob again after a few years. He's a great player. He really is. And of course, where are we now? Which one haven't I mentioned?
Chris Impellitteri.
Chris Impellitteri, the fastest guitar player in the West. I mean, yeah, he's a great arranger, player. You know what? Again, so different because of the speed he plays, I guess, from the other guys. There aren't many people that can play the way he does. And he plays it pretty accurately. You know, when he's doing some really fast runs that sound like they don't mean anything at the time, but they're actually within the chord structure, whereas a lot of people, guitar players, play out of the chord structure and just play whatever they like. He's pretty much on the ball all the time. He does some great arrangements for a vocalist to write melody and lyrics over.
Funnily enough, Graham, before this interview, I was just spinning the Wings album Back to the Egg, and I believe that Lawrence Juba from Wings was at one point in the frame to join Alcatrazz, correct?
Yes, he was. He came over to our manager's house one afternoon, and we rehearsed. He was very much into the business side of it, and my manager didn't like him for, he was talking about money from day one. It's like, well, how much is and how much do we get for a show? And, who's doing this for that? Who's paying for this? Do we have to pay for that? He was very inquisitive. And from being with Paul McCartney, he was very business savvy. He knew what was what. And our manager didn't like that. He was put aback a bit by that. Anyway, when we went into rehearsal with him, with Lawrence, he brought in a little tiny amp and played very wimpily. It wasn't very rock. And he wasn't the right choice, but he had a name. We were trying to put a band together that had people in the band that their names were familiar to the public, But it wasn't. He wasn't the right guy.
Let's talk a little about your current band before we finish up. You've got your longtime cohort Jimmy Waldo in the band, and I guess studious Kiss fans will know he was in New England, produced by Paul Stanley. Joe Stump on guitar, and from your solo band you have Beth, Amy, Heavenstone, and Mark.
It's a funny name, Bankachea.
Mark Bankachea. What can we expect?
No, Bankachea.
Thank you.
It's a good name. I told him to change, but he won't.
What can we expect from this lineup, mate?
Oh, this will be very Alcatrazz, but the Alcatrazz from the future, from now, not from Alcatrazz past. I think more mature music and some of it, but there will be stuff in there for the guys that like the Alcatrazz from 1980. It's going to be a mixture, but I think now Joe's in the band. He's a very powerful player and a very great player. He can play all the old stuff as well as inventing new styles for this album. And we're in the middle of doing that right now. In fact, we'll start recording like any day now because we're writing the songs as I speak.
I recently heard one of the tracks you cut with Joe Matera in the Swedish outfit Rough Rockers, a tune called Unleash the Beast, which for me was the highlight of the EP. Just a great track.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that was a weird one. I remember the title, but I don't remember the song very well because I do sessions on and off here and there, and they were pleased with it, so I'm glad you like it too. I can't remember how it went.
Graham, thank you so much for your time today. Look forward to seeing you in Australia soon. Tour dates Thursday, June the 6th at the Enigma Bar in Adelaide, Friday the 7th of June at the Corner Hotel in Melbourne, and then on Saturday the 8th of June at the Manning Bar in Sydney. Before you go, every guest on our show gets to choose a song by an Australian band. What would you like to choose and why?
Let me think. I like the Little River Band. They're good friends of mine when I see them. I can't think of a track. What's their
Reminiscing?
Reminiscing. No, not that one. Little River. Okay, do Reminiscing. That's cool. They're good friends of mine, and I love their harmonies. I sang in the bathroom at a show with them once, and it was fantastic. In the bathroom, I mean, in the shower department of the gig. It was all nice and echoey, and the reverb was fantastic. And they sang along with me. I can't remember what we sang now, but I think it was like a Beach Boys tune. I don't remember. But their harmonies are just amazing. And Glenn's a great singer. I think he's. I love them.
Wonderful choice. Look forward to seeing you in Australia soon, and good luck for the rest of the year.
Thank you very much.